In 2012, a large passenger liner, the Costa Concordia, crashed off the coast of Italy. On board were more than 4,000 people. The captain of the liner was one of the first to leave the ship, leaving the passengers and crew to the mercy of fate. My name is Fred Maximoff. This is case 31-694-87. The events took place in the winter of 2012, near the island of Giglio, Italy. The large cruise liner Costa Concordia was built in 2006 with the latest technology. The cost of the work amounted to €450 million. The dimensions of the giant are impressive. About the size of a 20-story building 3 football fields long. At the commissioning ceremony, a bottle of champagne did not break on board the first time, which is a bad sign in the Navy. Hereditary sailor Francesco Schettino was appointed captain of the ship. On board the luxury liner there was everything you need for relaxation and entertainment. 1,500 cabins, 5 restaurants, 4 swimming pools, a cinema, a spa, a casino, a concert hall, boutiques, a fitness center and much more. Costa Concordia could accommodate more than 3,000 passengers and more than 1,000 crew members. The first accident with the liner occurred in 2008 in the Italian city of Palermo. Costa Concordia during the mooring, the boat crashed into the floating dock. The incident was filmed by port workers. Then there were no consequences, but the dent remained quite large. The press did not specify who exactly was in charge of the mooring, Schettino or not. After the repair, the vessel again went to sea. The captain's associate said that he drives the ship as a Ferrari driver. At the same time, they knew him as a professional in his field who could take risks and deviate slightly from standard procedures. January 13, 2012, Costa Concordia went on a Mediterranean cruise with stops in 7 cities in Europe. On board were more than 3,000 passengers from around the world and about 1,000 crew members. The ship sailed from the Italian city of Civitavecchia to Savona. Closer to the night, the captain decided to deviate from the course in order to pass near the island of Giglio. It is not known for sure whether he wanted to impress the passengers or to greet someone on the shore with his horns. He had done this at least 3 times before. Disabling the ship's emergency protection and operating the liner only visually, Francesco Schettino came too close and too fast. Realizing the threat, he ordered the helmsman to turn to the right, but the giant ship, under the influence of a side wind, maneuvered too slowly and eventually crashed into an underwater rock. From the impact, the bottom of the left side received a hole 53 meters long. 4 compartments began to quickly fill with water. The ship could stay afloat with 2 compartments filled, but not 4. Within a minute, the engines stopped and the lights went out. Crew members calmed the passengers, saying that the electric generator had failed. Soon the light was restored, but many mechanisms, including the steering wheel, did not work. The unmanaged vessel initially moved by inertia towards the sea, but the wind and current turned it back to the shore. Costa Concordia approached the island of Giglio and gradually began to fall on the underwater rocks. The Coast Guard first learned of the incident from a passenger who, in a telephone conversation, was concerned that the Costa Concordia had tilted heavily on its side. People gathered on the decks, put on life jackets and waited for intelligible explanations from the crew. The captain remained silent for a long time and did not request help, probably due to an assessment of the extent of the damage. The evacuation command was given only an hour after the impact, when it became clear to everyone that the ship was sinking. By the time the rescue ships and helicopters were heading to the crash site, panic had already begun on board. People were making their way to the lifeboats, without any priority, every man for himself. There were even reports that crew members were the first to escape. Some passengers jumped overboard and swam to the shore, located 50 meters from the sinking ship. Among the first to leave the Costa Concordia was Captain Francesco Schettino. Later at the trial, he said that he had changed his naval uniform to civilian clothes, slipped and accidentally fell into the boat. On the way to the shore, the chief of the security staff phoned Schettino in a rude manner, ordered him to return on board to organize the evacuation of people, but the captain ignored the order.
Pronto? Sì, buonasera comandante. Senta, io sono di Falco da Livorno, parlo col comandante? Sì, buonasera comandante Falco. Mi dica il suo nome per favore. Sono il comandante Schettino, comandante. Schettino? Sì. Ascolti Schettino. C'è gente che sta scendendo dalla biscaggina di prua. Lei quella biscaggina la percorre in senso inverso, sale sulla nave e mi dice quante persone e che cosa hanno a bordo, chiaro? Mi dice se ci sono bambini, donne o persone bisognose di assistenza e me ne dice il numero di ciascuna di queste categorie, è chiaro? Schettino, che lei si è salvato forse dal mare, ma io la porto veramente molto male, faccio passare l'anima dei guai. Vado a bordo, cazzo!
The active part of the rescue operation lasted about 6 hours. During this time, more than 4,000 people were rescued from the sinking ship. Then the divers set to work. They examined the flooded premises, risking their lives, knowing that the ship could slide off the reef and completely sink. Fortunately, during the works, the ship moved only a few centimeters. On the first day, a South Korean couple of newlyweds was rescued, who was cut off from the exit, and on the second day, a man who injured his leg and was waiting for help in a half-flooded restaurant. An interesting coincidence: the granddaughter of one of the Titanic passengers was on the cruise. She, like her grandmother, managed to escape. However, not everyone is lucky. Costa Concordia claimed the lives of 32 people. Since there were many valuable things left on the ship, there were those who wanted to appropriate them for themselves. Marauder divers have stolen watches, jewelry, paintings and more. Some have been caught red-handed. About 2 weeks later, the search operation ended. Questions arose. Who is to blame and what to do with the half-flooded ship? 6 people were found guilty of the crash, 5 of whom got off with a suspended sentence. The main defendant was 52-year-old Captain Francesco Schettino. According to investigators, his actions led to the death of 32 people, the loss of the ship, and caused damage to the environment. The flight of the captain on the boat before the completion of the general evacuation only aggravated the sentence. As a result, Francesco Schettino received 16 years in prison. He never admitted his guilt, referring to the errors of the helmsman, who carried out the commands late or even completely confused them. During the proceedings, interesting details of that fateful evening came to light. It turned out that at the time of the collision, at the invitation of Schettino, there were strangers on the captain's bridge, including his secret lover Dominica Camorton. So, the main reasons for the crash were called a deviation from a safe course, a language barrier between the captain and the helmsman, as well as the presence of strangers on the bridge. The Italian press made Francesco Schettino the most hated man in the country, calling him Captain Coward. Immediately after the crash, booms were installed around the Costa Concordia to avoid a major oil spill. Soon, the fuel from the tanks was pumped out, and preparations began for lifting the vessel. It took more than 2 years to complete this unique project. In 2014, using steel cables and special water containers hung along the sides, the liner was put on an even keel, towed to the port and disposed of in 2017. The work cost more than €1 billion. The ship owner paid another €11,000 to each passenger of this cruise as compensation. According to some estimates, the total damage from the shipwreck was 3 times the cost of the ship itself. The loss of the liner, which was insured, did not greatly affect the activities of the ship-owning company, Costa Crocere. The company quickly recovered and began to make a profit again. The piece of rock stuck in the hull of the ship was turned into a monument. A memorial plaque was attached to it and lowered into the sea, near the crash site. The island of Giglio, whose inhabitants received the victims and provided them with all kinds of assistance, was awarded a state award, a gold medal, for civil merit. I recommend you to watch this amazing story.